What's up, you guys?
All up in your business.
Happy, I said I'm all a mess. Happy Wednesday. How are we?
Business.
Is it Wednesday? It is Wednesday, right? Yep, Wednesday. All right. So, the title of today's video, and our camera's a little crooked, is why can't I change even though I really want to? Hi, Katie.
Did you put that many relays in?
No, it wouldn't let me, but that's the feeling. Really want to.
Really.
Hi, Nate. So, we're going to talk about a couple different reasons this could be happening. I think there's a lot of a struggle going on in the world right now, at least in our arena, because more things got released about what can open, what can't open. So if you're...
Well, let's be honest. They're moving in the direction that we were all hoping for. It just didn't... it didn't go the way that everyone was hoping it would go. So we're feeling some... I wouldn't say backlash, but we're feeling different resistance and emotions coming through.
So if you don't know, obviously, we own a gym. We have a physical location in Colorado. We were under the impression or the hope that after the 8th, we would go to the 10-person rule and we could kind of start to move towards a little more normalcy. We found out today that all gyms are closed. You can do personal training with groups of 4 or less. So that kind of has everybody a little bit... less than excited that we were all hoping to kind of get back to what we knew. So what we want to talk about today is there's a lot of things going on right now in just how people are feeling. And I think a lot of people we're in an emotional distressed state anyway, right? Like normalcy hasn't been that way. It's been 7 weeks, I think 7 weeks now, right? Like there is no normal. And so I think when we start to get this, like that little bit of certainty, we talked about certainty a lot. We start to get that like, okay, it's going to start to go back. Maybe there's some certainty, whatever. And then it sort of feels like it's taken away. How do we respond to that? Like, what are we actually doing in response to that? And kind of what is going on around us? So we just kind of want to dive into that a little bit more and kind of help you guys maybe through today and through the next few weeks.
Well, and I think we've been talking about this in different variations for 48 episodes. 48 episodes. But I think it's also important to understand, you guys, is we all have an emotional home, right? And so no matter what we do, we all have it's kind of like a thermostat gauge, right? Like if my thermostat is normally set at 70 degrees, right? Like if it goes up to 72, the AC will kick on and bring it back down. If it goes down to 68, the heat will kick on and go back up, right? And so our emotional home is where we tend to have that same kind of reservoir, right? Reservoir? That same setting.
Yeah.
Reservoir would be right. The same setting for that, right? And so if you tend to would you probably agree that if you have a happy-go-lucky friend, they probably tend to always be in a happy-go-lucky kind of place, right? Like if you have an angry friend, they tend to always be angry, right? Like that's their emotional home and where they tend to find themselves. And so it's being able to be aware of these things and be able to where is your emotional home and where is it driving you on your actions and on your decisions of where we're going. Because, what we're seeing right now is, we've talked about being right. We've talked about what we can do to be happy, what we can talk about being our focus. We can do these things, but it's also, what is your emotional home? Because I would imagine in times of uncertainty like this is probably where you're finding yourself going back into, right? Like I've been trying to make all these changes, right? I've been focusing on this. I've been doing all these things. Well, if your emotional home is, I need control. I get more angry. I get more anxious. I get more overwhelmed. I get whatever. That's where we're probably finding ourselves in a matter of certainty because that's what our body and brain understand. And so in order for us to actually elicit any sort of change, we got to understand what is your home and why did it used to serve us and whether or not is that actually serving us right now in this moment.
Well, and we start to see, like we've talked so much about certainty and values and rules and all of that stuff with you guys. And so right now there's a lot of stuff with like when you value freedom and you feel like you can't have that right now, we start to get frustrated, right? But we also see a lot of people that we used to live in this. Like we only knew how to survive and how to operate when we were in struggle, right? Not struggle, but when we were in hustle, when we were in go, when we would create chaos in our life so that we knew that was the thing that was going to push us forward, right? And so if that's what you're used to being and you're used to sort of being in the hustle or being in the struggle or being in the chaos or whatever, it's easier right now because we don't have a lot of other control. It's easier to actually create chaos in your life and create more like uncertainty and what, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but it's easier to be in that because that's what we know, right? And so, me too, Crystal. So like, it's easier to be like, well, I know what chaos feels like, even though we don't like the feeling. Your body wants consistency, right? And your body's like, well, I know what chaos feels like, so I'm going to create it because that's what I know, right? And it's like, well, I mean, I was talking to a client the other day and it was like, I don't know how to not, like, I don't know how to relax. I don't know how to not be in chaos or be in hustle or be in push. And we lived in that. And so what we see a lot of people right now that they're like, okay, well, what I really want is to be able to go to the gym, to be able to go shopping, to be able to go, you know, have dinner, go to the mountains, whatever. So instead, because I can't have that, I'm going to create all these things for myself to do. And I'm going to create all these stories about what's really going on in my life right now. And I'm going to live into those because that feels normal because I can control any things I want to control. So I'm going to create all this stuff that I really don't have control of, that I want to have control of. And then I'm in chaos, and then I think it's the outside world's fault, right? But really the problem is that that's just what we know to be true, right? Hi, Sam. If we know what chaos feels like or struggle or whatever, that's what we go back to when we don't feel like we have the ability to create anything outside of us, right? So I want you guys to analyze like, well, what's going on? And I remember I had this fear. I was like, I only am really good at creating things when I like procrastinate or my back's against the wall or I have to get it done, right? And like I used to like wait till the last minute to do papers. That was my personality. It was also a story that like, well, if I wasn't creating from fear or hustling from fear or having to do things from fear, maybe I would just nap all day, right? Of course that wasn't true. But there was an honest fear because I didn't know what the other side felt like. I didn't know what calm felt like. I didn't know what flow felt like. I didn't know what any of that felt like, but I knew what chaos felt like. And I definitely knew that I could find certainty in chaos.
Well, I remember when you asked me the question, right? Like, well, what would it feel like? Could you imagine the fact of like the gym not feeling like it always had, you had to put out fires all day long, right? Like you had to be working 12 to 14 hours a day and always create problems, because that's what I did. Like I would come up and create something new. I would create construction. I would create an idea in my head that we need to put out a fire over here, or we need to do this, and we need to create, 14 other programs in order to, do whatever, right? And it was like when Courtney literally asked me that question of like, well, what would it feel like for the gym not to have problems with it all day long? And I literally couldn't answer the question, right? It was like, well, what do you mean? If there's no problems, that means I'm not worthy and there's nothing going, I can't serve and I'm useless at that point.
You couldn't fix it.
Yeah.
There was no problem.
Then that was my story, is I always had to be the fixer, right? Like, I think that happens for a lot of males portions of like, I always have to be the knight in shining armor and be the problem solver and be the fixer. Not to mention like, obviously on a coaching standpoint, right? Like is understanding that my job isn't necessarily to fix anything, because yet again, if you're watching this, you're not broken, right? Like our job is to just provide you with tools and help you with guidance and be along on the journey with you as you go through these things, not to fix you. And so it was a much different thing for me to actually understand of, wow, all the turmoil, all these things that I'm creating in my life, and why I feel like every time we get some sort of momentum going and I feel like I trip myself up, is because first off, the message, the consistency and congruency, the message that I'm sending myself is, no, you need this constant turmoil and this constant whirlpool of just overaction and everything else that you're doing is what your emotional home is and what your body understands. And so it's going to do what it can to hit the reset button so it understands how to interact in that.
So yeah, so if you ever feel like you're making progress, and we've talked about bit far before, but it's your beliefs, your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, and your results. But it's like you start to make this progress and then you snap back, right? And you make this progress and you snap back. And it's because you're not working with that space in between like where you're at. But I know for Brandon, when he was going through that, and it was interesting because I would watch him and I would be like, why does he do that? And then I'd be like, he'd tell me all the 25 things he was going to get done that day. And I'm like, well, that's ridiculous. And I thought it was crazy until I turned the mirror back on myself and realized I did the same thing. And I would go look at my to-do list and I'm like, well, there's no way I'm going to get all of that done today. So why am I doing that too, right? And so it's understanding like what you're doing and like
But what was, on top of that, what was the feeling like when you would look at your list and essentially there's no logical way that you could get all this stuff done? Not to mention like with any sort of quality, right?
yeah, well,
like,
so then it was failure every day, right? And so both of us would fail at getting these monumental things done that didn't actually have to be done, right? We'd created deadlines that didn't need to actually be there, that didn't make any sense. So then we felt like we were failing, which made us in turn not trust ourselves, right? And so probably you guys have felt this where you're like, I'm going to do the thing, and then you don't do the thing, and then you're like, I'm a failure, and then you don't trust yourself, and then you try to come up with more rules, and you're like, it's like you just keep snapping back because what you know to be true is where you're at, right? And so if we don't actually understand, like, how do we start to take action and then change the space between? We have to heal in the space between those. You know, like how you do that, fight depression. This is the topic of my life. So, oh man. Zach, depression is a very interesting thing, and like we would be happy to talk to you about it. I think a lot of times with depression, it's actually being able to feel. So if you've watched any of our stuff, if you haven't watched any of our stuff, I would go back and watch a lot of this stuff. Depression is really scary, and it is really close to home right now for me. But like, it's understanding that we get to feel, right? We get to feel the good and we get to feel the bad, right? And I think we were just having this conversation is that like, what we all fear is that like we're gonna feel the negative emotions, we're gonna feel the sadness, right? Like I'm grieving the loss of a friend that committed suicide this weekend, and I'm like just keep breaking down in tears, and my kids are like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, I'm getting to feel this, right? And so there's a lot of fear that like if we feel the lower stuff, we don't know how to feel the higher stuff, right? But it's understanding how to do that, right? So Zach, I hope you have talked to a professional. If you haven't, like please do, like reach out to us. We'd be happy to talk to you, but please go talk to somebody. There's always hope, and there's always ways to kind of work through that. It's a process. It's a hard battle.
And it's like a lot of it, especially a lot of depression and everything else, is that loss of feeling of control, right? Like I don't have any say over whatever I'm experiencing, because I've been there. I've been and went through my own bout of depression, went through my own bout of uncertainty, and everyone's journey is different on those things, but a lot of it stems from the fact of we don't feel like we have any control. We don't feel like we have any say over what's going on in moments of our lives, right? And especially when we're trying to grasp a hold of anything, because that's what I did. I tried to grasp a hold of any straw, any friend, anything that I could grab a hold of that I knew that I could try to control this scenario. But it was also living into the fact of it was okay to not be in control. And I think that was a hard thing for me to understand is, well, no, if I can control all these things, then I can gain some power back. When it was understanding that really the power that I was trying to grab a hold of was actually pushing me farther into the hole. Because when we try to break things down, it's understanding that when we really look at things, we don't have control over really anything, right? Like we have control over how we react in certain scenarios, and the actions in which we take regarding them, but we don't have any control over the outcome, right? Like it's, I think oftentimes when we can get into those sensations and those feelings and not really understand them very well, and we misinterpret them, and then all of a sudden our misinterpretation can lead us down another spiraling kind of case on that is being able to really be able to honor yourself and understand that first and foremost you're human, right? And I think for a lot of people that we've been around in especially dealing with these type of uncertainty type of things is, you know, where's the things that you're doing aligning with yourself, right? Like what are the things that you're doing really? Because I think for myself is the standard to which I was holding myself to was super unrealistic, right? Like it was perfectionism. It was, I had to control everything. I had to have a say in everything. Everyone had to do exactly what I need them to do exactly at the moment in which I think they should do it. They should react the way that I think they should react. And it wasn't serving me at all. And I think when it comes to a lot of depression, a lot of uncertainty feelings, it is an aspect of we don't have any control. But there's also power in creation, but also in, what do they always say, in
lack of control, uncertainty.
No, in what is it when like I don't want to say laying down, but
Surrender.
Surrender. Yes, thank
Sorry,
you.
I was like, where did I go? Sorry.
So there is
Surrender.
power in surrendering, right? And I think especially as a man, like as a guy, there's also times of the aspect of that masculinity of like, no, I'm going to be I'm going to be stronger than this, right? I'm going to overdrive these emotions, these feelings, these sensations that I'm feeling in my body. And I'm going to stifle them down because I shouldn't be feeling them. And Lord knows if I acknowledge them, they're actually going to be worse. And that makes me more of a less of a man and not as strong. When it's in reality, when you can acknowledge those things and understand that those things actually make you more powerful, more strong, and actually make you more of a human, like that's where growth and that's where we're just humanity is.
Yeah. And I think the thing when we talk about control, I like to say this almost every time because the first time that someone told me that was control is an illusion, I was like, I'm not hearing that. Like, I got to control all of the things. And like, it really triggered me. And when I started to understand that, yes, I couldn't control things, but I was in creation of how I wanted to feel, how I wanted to show up. I got to be the creator of my own experience. I can't control anything else. I can't control COVID-19. I can't control when my gym opens. I can't control any of that. But what I can create is how I feel, how I show up in the world, my physical and emotional presence that I get to create, right? And that I also get to feel through, right? Like, I'll be honest, I'm not in like the best mood today. And it's just because life, but that's okay. Because like before I would have stifled it. I would have pretended everything was okay. I would have just like not felt it. And today I'm like, you know what? I'm going to feel it. I'm probably going to have a glass of wine. I'm going to look at photo albums and I'm just going to let myself be and cry. Right. And so it's understanding, like Brandon said, part of the human experience is all of it and honoring all of it and loving all of it and understanding that we need to have the lower vibrating energies to understand ourselves and to get them out of our system so we can allow space for the happier ones to come in, right? Because if you just live in this numb state, you don't feel the good or the bad, right? So it's understanding that the beautiful gift of life is getting to feel all of it and getting to look a little bit deeper at like what's going on, what's happening, why do I feel this way? Like, why does that announcement make me so, whatever it is, frustrated, stressed, angry, emotional? Like, what is going on? And how do I get to shift that? And what part of me still needs to get healed? And what part of me do I need to give a little bit more love to today because I'm having these feelings, right? So it's not push them away, it's not change them. What part of you needs some love today? And how can you provide that for yourself? Okay. All right, guys, we love you. We appreciate you. Yeah, if you're a Surge member, we're going to jump on the Surge page. We'll give you guys a little bit of update of what we're going to do. If you guys have questions, if you need support, like whatever you need, just reach out. We're here. Literally, like, drop us a DM. We can jump on the phone with you. Like, we really are here to serve you guys and to help you guys. So if you need us, please reach out.
Well, and these are all obviously, I don't want to say big topics because every topic's big in its own right? But I think especially looking at the statistics of, domestic violence. I mean, we just went to a liquor store, like Courtney said, she got a bottle of wine and everything else. And, like liquor stores, like they're doing backflips because they're killing it right now as far as business goes, because it's like what we're doing right now is we're numbing a lot, right? Like, well, I can't move. I'm uncertain. I can't do these things. So alcohol, marijuana, other drugs, whatever. It's a very easy outsource to numb myself away from what's really going on, right? And I think it's being honorable to yourself of, first off, why are you doing that, right? Like, why are you turning to those things? What is those serving you? And it's not coming from a place of judgment, but on a place of, is it serving you to the person that you want to move towards being? But at the same time, like all these topics, you guys, we all go through them, right? Like, I think yet again, I would love to say that I'm a unique butterfly, snowflake, whatever, but I know I'm human and we all go through the vast array of emotions, but it's being able to honor that and be able to, you know what, I am having these things going on and I don't know what to do with them, because I was there, right? Like I was there for years of not knowing what the hell was to do with them, and it created a lot of turmoil and a lot of toxic relationships and a lot of different things that I did to myself physically during that time that, you know what, that I honor and I'm grateful for, because it allowed me to learn a lot from that time frame. But I know if I had another outsource or another outlet to reach out to, it would have been amazing for me at that time.
So, yeah, we only talk about this stuff, guys, because we've been through it, right? We're not over here like, oh, life's all sunshines and rainbows. Like, it's not always, and that's okay. So we love you guys. We appreciate you guys. We'll be back tomorrow. Is it episode 50? No. That's Friday.
49.
Friday is episode 50.
Going to the 50s.
A lot of days, you guys. So we love you. We appreciate you. And we'll see you tomorrow.